I have owned way too many lenses over the course of my lifetime. The majority of these lenses didn't even make it onto my camera, but I bought them because I wanted new gear or I didn't want to miss out on the latest and greatest thing that there was. I actually ended up selling or trading most of these lenses in. I've learned that it's just best to keep the setup simple. And so today I wanted to talk to you about the lenses I actually use so that you'll know, in my opinion, what's worth your investment and what's not. Think of this video as more of a guideline instead of a strict list of lenses that you should be using. For starters, if the only thing you have is your kit lens, then that's fine, go for it, because ultimately it's about making content. But if you're ready to level up your video quality, then I think this list is going to actually help you out. First up is the lens I almost use exclusively 100% of the time, especially when I'm filming my YouTube videos, and that's my Sigma 16mm 1.4. I love it because it gives you a wide field of view, so I can get close to the camera, I can get close to the microphone, I can monitor myself easily on the screen above. It doesn't distort the edges, so it's not so wide that it looks fisheye. Plus it has that 1.4 f-stop aperture that gives me that blurry background. So I would first off recommend, if you're doing for like YouTube stuff, get a wide angle lens that you can be close and you can see and monitor and you can get close to that microphone, because that's going to make a big difference. Also, if you can get something with a low f-stop, get that as well. A low f-stop on a lens is actually pretty cool because the lower the number goes, the more light it lets in and the blurrier the background is. For example, I've got the f-stop kind of cranked up on this lens right now, and as you can see, the background is kind of in focus. In fact, that's the dopest painting I own. It's an old-timey baseball game that I love because I'm a huge baseball fan. But you can see with the high f-stop, that background is kind of in focus. However, if I lower the f-stop and I go all the way down to the 1.4 that this lens can do, you can now see my face is still in focus, but the background is blurry. So that's just a cool thing to have with a low f-stop lens. Now, the Sigma 16mm is what I use 95 to 98% of the time, because most of the time I'm filming the YouTube stuff right here, and I'm in a small office, so I don't have a lot of space. And so that wide-angle lens really helps with that space. However, if I'm filming outside the office or if I'm filming for a client somewhere, I like to use a longer focal length. For example, I use my Sigma 56mm. Now, on the APS-C crop sensor that I use, that's the equivalent to about a 90mm focal range. And the reason I like that so much is it really compresses the background. So it kind of pulls the subject away from the background even more than the 16mm would, because a long focal range lens is going to naturally blur out the background. And so the image that you can get out of a long focal range lens is phenomenal. And the question is, how many times am I going to say long focal range lens? I'm sorry. The third lens that I use on I guess you would call regular basis is my Sigma 30mm. That gives me that nice mid-range focal length. If I can get away with using the 56mm, I'm going to use the 56mm. But if I don't quite have the room, then I'm going to use the 30mm because it'll still give me better compression than this 16 does, but it doesn't take as much room as the 56mm does. So this is a nice mid-range length that comes in handy, but I wouldn't say I use it as much as I use the other two lenses. The fourth and final lens that I actually use is my Canon 11 to 22mm. I use that because that 11mm gives me a wider field of view than the 16. I use the 16 over the 11 because I can get that low f-stop like I was talking about. This 11 to 22, it doesn't have that low of an f-stop. But if I ever want to zoom out and show you the microphone I'm using, or maybe a light, or just show more of the surrounding area, or if I'm going to do like a walk and talk, this wide-angle lens is nice, but it also has built-in stabilization, so it helps smooth the footage out a little more than the Sigma would that doesn't have the built-in stabilization. So I do use the 11 to 22 from time to time, and those are the only four lenses that I actually use, and I really don't think you need much more than that. Maybe a super long lens if you're into photography or something, but those four are pretty much it. Now, the question is, what order would I actually buy these in if I were starting over? The first lens that I would actually buy if I was starting over would definitely be the 16mm. I've just gotten so much use out of it. It's the perfect lens for me for my YouTube setup, and I think that wider prime lens is just a great lens to start with. Secondly, I would buy the 56 millimeter to get that longer focal length. You might even consider going even with a longer focal length than the 56, but I just like the look that you get out of that, or that comes out of that on the camera. Third, I would buy the 11 to 22. Just because you get that versatile zoom, so I can go as wide as 11 and show things around. I can go to 22 if I wanted to zoom in some. Plus, it has the built-in image stabilization. I don't do a lot of walk and talk video, but if you do, then that actually might be the first lens you want to go with, is a really, really wide image stabilized lens. But for me, that'd be the third one I bought. Fourth, of course, would be the 30 millimeter Sigma. Just because it's that in between the 16 and the 56. I don't use it that much because I try to make the 56 work when I can. If I can't, then I will use the 30 millimeter, but it would be in fourth place because it's the lens that I use the least out of these four. In fact, I still have more lenses in my camera bag that I don't even use anymore. I should probably sell them, and just to be honest, because my wife would probably appreciate that. No matter what lens you choose, just remember that that's only part of the battle. You need great sounding audio. So if you're looking for a couple of budget microphones, check out this video right here. It'll kind of help compare a couple of the best budget mics on the market.